there are so many powerful, badass, magical people that are hidden in plain sight. We are meant to start connecting using the medium of the internet, because we are literally spread all over the globe, and that's intentional. So if we can ride a current, if we can all tap into a current that we're all using and use that as the metaphor for sort of storing our magic and our intention, that intention being free energy, that intention being abundance, heaven on earth, astronomical abundance, and healing restoration on the grid, that intention being set free from slavery, from the slavery mindset, from the lack matrix, we can intentionally use the internet, intentionally use this medium, and use our magic to sort of clear up the lines. Because the internet is this amazing tool that gives us access to things at our fingertips. But with that, not having discernment about what we're actually doing with that power, there's been you all feel it, that the internet itself is being used as a platform for psychic warfare. So it's sort of about being that counter energy on the internet and having a group of us that are magical intentionally set up a sort of free portal on the internet, and our own energy stream, our own algorithm. And this translates exactly to how we are interacting online. The hashtags we're using, the things we're clicking on, the things we're commenting on. So it's not just about us doing a spell, being in our own magical space and setting intentions. It's then about taking the action and utilizing, choosing, co-agreeing to use the internet in a very specific way. And in that, kind of create a language with each other. We do that by just setting a vibe. And so I'm inviting you, all of you magical people, to join in on tuning in to the resonance of astronomical abundance, the resonance of the win-win-win, the resonance of heaven on earth, the resonance of peace. And it's really easy when you start actually using your intuitive gifts to tune into that resonance. You see quickly how different that resonance is from war, how different it is from the way we've been playing the game in the collective. Look at politics. Politics are a perfect example of the exact opposite of what heaven on earth feels like in terms of the energy behind it. That competitive energy, the warlike energy, the feel free to knock someone and tear someone down and see them as act as if they're separate than you so that you can win, so that you can have more power. All of that actually comes from insecurity. All of it comes from fear, from a deep fear that we're not enough and that there's not enough. And if we don't gain power and have power over others, that we are vulnerable, that we are then vulnerable. This spell of astronomical abundance is really about tuning into what does heaven on earth feel like and becoming that vibration so we can actually start feeling it and accessing it. And we access it by bringing the resonance in and practicing it, resonance training. So what I wanted to do in this video is just give you sort of my idea of what I'm doing for the spell, just invite those of you who want to be in the spell to participate, whether you're actually taking the spell, doing the spell with us, or just doing it on your own. I wanted to give you the info. There's so many people that can be a part of this and want to be a part of it, and it's just about a collective agreement. And I find there's a lot of magical people just sort of doing their thing and living their life and in their own world, hidden in plain sight. I know a few of you. Yeah, we can have our own little magical world and do our thing and kind of live in our own world. But eventually the collective, because we use the same grid as the collective. We're using the medium of the internet right now. So we're on the same grid as other people using this internet. And there's a very strong collective vibe that is sort of taken over. And you know better than anyone when the collective vibe in the grid is primarily in a more negative state, then people naturally polarize into a more negative state, and we become naturally a more negative being, a more negative species, so to speak, more in the dark. It's happening right now that we are starting to shift collectively to more of a slightly more positive outlook, a slightly more expansive. There's more and more people believing in abundance and believe, and really getting free and realizing, oh, we can be free. When you're truly free, you are free. You're free from fear. That means you literally realize you do not have to participate in that reality. And then all your creative energy is freed up, and you can start actually moving towards what you desire instead of fighting what you don't want. So the key to all of this is desire. And in the spell of astronomical abundance, it's about really activating our desire, our creative fuel, and then intentionally focusing it and directing it towards what we want, which in this case is a collective vibe that's very strong that easily helps people polarize into a slightly more positive state, into heaven on earth. And this benefits all of us to do this, because if we hold that down, and the more of us that hold that energy down, the easier magic becomes, the easier it gets to use your creative abilities. A big part of doing the spell of astronomical abundance is making magical energy more accessible. This is all about grounding into the planet and connecting to the planet more. That's what this spell of astronomical abundance is. It's ultimately about connecting to your body, making love to your physical expression, making love to this experience, and grounding it as much as possible into the physical. I feel like one of the biggest issues we've had just in our separation, us all sort of being all around the world, is that we've gotten into our own little isolated spaces, and we can easily go in our worlds, in our imagination, in our creative realms, but then connecting to the actual planet and the grid, where there's been another storyline playing out this whole time, it's hard to actually ground it in and make it practical for the grid, make it ground it in a practical way. And so many magical people stay up in their higher chakras, and they don't ever ground it down into a sensual reality that it's palpable, because the more we ground it, the more we ground magical energy, magical creative energy on the planet, and the more that energy is available to others. In the spell of astronomical abundance, this is sort of what I'm suggesting to do. Tweak it according to your magic and your intuition and your abilities, but this is what has been coming through to me. Prepare. So preparing is knowing, okay, I'm doing a collective spell with other magical people around the globe, and I don't even know who they are, but we know what the actual center of our objective is. We know what our intention is, which is to create astronomical abundance in our life. And what that actually translates to is feeling amazing in my whole electromagnetic field, resonating at the heartbeat of the earth, resonating with heaven on earth, resonating with that sensual experience of what it is to be in the garden of life. That energy, we're moving deeper into our bodies, deeper into the earth, deeper into our sensuality, deeper into desire, and therefore into thriving. The intention of the spell is to feel better being in the body. And ultimately, it's to calm the PTSD on the planet, starting in our bodies, starting in our physical bodies, but to really imprint on our spinal cord, in our energy field, that we are safe. And moving from there, once we just get to that resonance of safety, that we can start opening our hearts again and feeling and letting the universe, letting source love us back into flourishing. It requires slowing way, 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 way down. That's why using the internet in this way is so powerful, because we're all strategically placed all over on the grid, and I believe we're placed on very specific nodal points. So the more of us that activate this, I think we're going to feel it like in a very astrally tantric way. And that's kind of how we're going to navigate the spell, is how does it feel? Because we're moving into that feeling of making love to the grid, making love to our experience, making love to life, making love to creative energy, using our desire intentionally, using our urge, instead of depleting our energy in fear and war, going into war with people. So we're really anchoring in that opposite side. So prepare your space in every way, and actually set a time to do the physical part of the spell, and then the work of the spell will go on throughout the summer. So we're using July, August, and September, so 3 months, to really anchor in the energy of the spell, to really essentially allow us to dissolve in our chrysalis, to dissolve and be rebuilt within in a safe way, and also co-creating it on the internet. So setting the intention, we are extending our magical energy out onto the internet, and we are creating a chrysalis, a space for us, for people to be able to safely dissolve and come back to life. We put these new energy streams up on the grid that turn on the matrix of abundance. The butterfly is the perfect analogy because it's metamorphosis. That's ultimately what this spell is. We're dying to lack. We're dying to our old self. We're dying to any parts of us, especially for you magical people, any part of you that's still plugged into the collective matrix of lack, any part of you that's still feeding into a system like that's coming, a program that's coming into your body that says you're a slave. The reason why I think it's important to use our imaginations and think of this as imagination. We're imagining a new world. We're imagining a new space, but we're also taking practical steps to make that happen. Ultimately, we're programming our central nervous system to understand we are safe. We are safe. We are safe. Just moving out of that war mentality and unplugging from the collective psychic warfare and just letting it go. The power of doing a spell, which can be a vision board, it can be, I've even told people before, you could take a doll and imagine that it's you and put all of your intentions and love into it. And then when you think fractally, when we're talking about the spell of astronomical abundance, you open up the abundance by understanding, okay, so this doll is a representation of me, but it's also a representation of humanity, and it's also a representation of the earth. I'm lining my whole self up to it. I'm lining up to the win-win-win. So anything I do for me, I'm the voodoo doll in this particular spell, or I'm going to use a physical object to be that, or a magical container to contain the magic of my intention and in this spell. But I am in that including others and the planet. So it's not just magic for me. This is magic on the grid. And that's why it's astronomical, and that's why it's abundance, because we're doing the exact opposite of what the mainstream collective energy is currently being utilized to do, which is cause more division and cause more fear and cause more insecurity. And we're actually instead using our magical energy, our creative energy, to cause more safety, to help us feel more secure, to help us feel more secure, to help us feel more safe, to help us feel more empowered. So to prepare to open up, you've got to feel safe. You've got to feel safe to open up. So whatever you need to do to clear your space. So I recommend, you can sage or use Palo Santo. You create that space to feel as safe and as magical as you can make it feel. And I like the full experience. So sometimes I will turn on nature sounds like frogs and crickets for whatever reason. Like frogs and crickets at night really activate my magic. So I'll turn on that, or there's like Harry Potter ASMR rooms on the internet that are so cool. They just evoke the whole scene for you, and it has all the sounds like fire crackling and someone writing on a scroll or whatever. It makes you totally feel like you're inside a magical space. The idea is that it evokes an ambiance for you to totally feel your magic stimulated, that you just feel alive and awake inside, that your power, your heart feels open, and you can engage with energy, because doing magic at all is engaging with the principalities. It's engaging with subtle energy and nuances. It's tuning in. It's fine-tuning your sensitivities, and it's working with the elements. You're literally working with life force, the energy of the element. So you're working with fire, you're working with air, you're working with earth, you're working with water, you're working with all the elements. That is the magic. It's the organic way that energy manifests itself. I mean, think about it. It's just fascinating. It's all energy, but it's manifesting in these different elements. So when you prepare for the spell, set your space, make yourself feel as magical as possible, and then call in all the elements. Bring them in. Energetically bring in the energy of water. Energetically bring in the energy of air. Energetically bring in the energy of fire. And energetically bring in the energy of earth. And feel that is the way, those are the ways in our reality in which energy manifests itself. And allow that energy to be with you. So just bring in symbols that feel good to you, symbols that evoke more of your magic, symbols that make you feel empowered, especially symbols that make you feel abundant. You can also ride certain energies of the day. So if you look into what planets rule each day, Monday through Friday, it kind of tells you the planet and the energy of that day. So for example, Friday is ruled by Venus. And Venus is all about the goddess of love. So it's a great day to do any sort of self-love spells or prayers for the planet, for yourself or others. So I think Friday would be a really good day to do this spell. So when you're in the planning stages of it, you can also plan what day do you want to do the spell. And then when you actually go to do the spell on that day, you want to make sure you clear the energy, set a really powerful vibration for the win-win-win. A circle is the most basic form of psychic protection. And it's like the womb. You are protected in the womb, but it does have to be circular because there has to be room for you to grow and organically move with it. If there's energy in your space that causes you to feel like you can't fully be in your heart, then that energy is going to block the spell. And so you have to just ask it to leave. Ask any energy that's not for the purpose of the spell, that's not in alignment with the purpose of the spell, to shift. Because I think that, especially if you come from a religious background, it can be very easy to think of all of this as astral war all the time. And so rather than creating spaces of peace and joy and heaven and pockets of heaven on earth, we go in with a battlefield mindset, which just because the body doesn't feel safe. And in the realm of magic at all, there's a deep trauma that has been imprinted in our psyche for doing anything like this, for utilizing the creative mind. There's been a Holocaust around the world of people who have utilized their creative mind in this way. So there is a very real and natural slight kind of fear about magical energy and using creative power. And rightfully so, because there's such a fine line between genius and madness. And the fine line is how well can we track with the collective reality. That's always our set point. So as long as we can track and we can differentiate, it's okay to hold these spaces. It's okay as long as we know we're utilizing our imagination, we're setting an intention, we're doing a prayer, whatever it is, like you just allow yourself to be free in the space. Once you've cleared the space, ground deeply into your body. Get into the body as much as we can to actually occupy, fully allow our spirits, our creative life force to occupy the body. And that means be present in every way to this reality. Be present to the sensuality of it and allow ourselves to really connect with it. Magical energy is sexual energy primarily. It's creative energy, so it's sexual energy. And this is where a lot of people have been repressed, or just deeply programmed to have these weird beliefs and associations with creative energy. And so often we don't realize that we're blocking our magical creative energy because of fear around the source that it comes from, which is sex, creativity, life, creating life. Ground the energy into the body and into the earth. That's also why we're working with the elements of the earth, because we're programming our prayer into the earth. We're programming our intention into the earth, and we're using symbols around us to do that. So once you've cleared the energy, ground deeply into your body, ground and center into your body. And really, I would say ground into your sexual energy. But stay within what feels good to you in that way, where you feel like you can be perfectly vulnerable with the universe and open and playful in your magic, and also be open to receiving, because this is not just about you. It's about the magical grid. It's about life force itself, magical energy that you are starting to flirt with and play with and create with. And you gain magical authority the more you can establish that relationship a relationship of trust between you and the magical energy. And it's one where you feel safe with it and it feels safe with you. So then after you ground into your physical body, then it's time to raise and amplify the energy. Now remember, you've created a circle, you're in a womb, which is the blueprint for creating your chrysalis. When you raise the magical energy, it's also like raising your kundalini, raising your sexual power, raising your creative life force. I was recently at a Reiki class, and this woman who's been doing energy healing for over 25 years just happened to be the one teaching the class. And she taught us a technique that day about shaking your trauma out. And she said that trauma is biological in the body. It's a biological issue in the body. It's not a emotional issue in the body. It's biological. And that the body, when it's naturally in trauma, it will shake. When something physically happens to put the body in trauma, it shakes. When we experience emotional trauma, which is often delayed trauma, the body still will shake it out. But often we're trained on a daily basis to have to control that energy, because we're in spaces where we're not allowed to just fall apart. We're not allowed to just allow it to come out. And so we get very good at suppressing the shake, suppressing that energy of fear. And the more we suppress it, the more it builds. And then if we get triggered, it can come out very unexpectedly and in an extremely powerful way. So the technique that she taught us, which is related to raising your magical energy, to amplifying the energy of the room, is to tune into your central nervous system. Close your eyes, tune into your central nervous system, to the core of your central nervous system, and just stay with it until you feel the vibration of it. Just the pulse of it. And then tune into that more and amplify it. And you can imagine you're tuning into the core of the earth, the energy of the core of the earth. And you'll feel that it's a pulse. It's a pulse. And the more you feel into that pulse, the more you can amplify the pulse. You're not directing it. It's just you're becoming aware of it. And as you become aware of that pulse, eventually your body will start to sort of shake and vibrate. When I did it, I was shaking really hard in the back of my heart chakra. And her suggestion is you just stay with it. The whole purpose is to shake out the trauma. In this case, we're lining up to an intention. So we're shaking out any energy or any beliefs that are keeping us in the old vibration that's not a match to our spell. We shake out anything that's not a match to the spell, to the prayer, to the intention. And so any experiences that we've had that has caused our central nervous system to feel unsafe needs to be shaken out. And as we shake it out, we allow the vibration or the resonance within us to be more amplified and calm. You see, we're telling the body, I'm safe. You're letting it shake out. When I did this, the instructor had us just stay with it for a while and not direct it. She recommended not going into a meditation, not trying to direct it, not trying to solve it, not doing energy work with it at all, where you try to reroute it. Amplify it. Just amplify the vibration. And as you amplify the vibration, you just shake. You just let it shake out. So for me, I shook in the back of my heart chakra for quite a while, and then it eventually moved down into my hips and then out of my wrists. And I was still shaking. When the class was over, I was shaking all the way walking out to the car. I shook in the car, and it was just a very light, if you don't put a story to it and you don't tell yourself there's something wrong, like is what we usually do, is panic and, oh no, don't shake, don't visibly show anything other than what looks like you're holding it all together, So once you get over that and oh, I'm allowing it to come out, for me, it was just a subtle shake. It wasn't even like I think anyone could necessarily visibly see it, except for maybe in the class. But it's just shaking inside, And I shook all the way to the next night. And I think that I shook all the way kind of on and off in the night. I just kept, every time I felt it, I allowed it to vibrate. But then I slept for 3 days straight. I crashed. I was so tired. And then I felt like something had shifted major in my energy field. And I keep letting it shake. I keep just tuning into that vibration and letting it shake. So as you're setting the intention to raise the magical energy, I recommend allowing that shake, tuning into the center, and just allowing your physical body to shake out any energy that is not a match to the spell that you're doing. One of my clients, just when I told her this technique, she was telling me about watching she had a bunch of butterflies that she got to watch actually, make their chrysalis and then come out of their chrysalis. And she said that when they go up to the branch, you can watch this online too, I just haven't watched it yet, but when they go up to the branch, what they do is they start shaking. I think they're hanging upside down, and then they just shake and they literally invert, and then that inversion creates the chrysalis around them. But they literally shake out of their caterpillar self. They shake out of that skin and let something new come from it. And that space in between, when they're a caterpillar and a butterfly, is the magical substance that they created from allowing the caterpillar to die, from shaking out that program, the program of a caterpillar. So that's what we're ultimately doing in this spell. We're shaking out the program of lack and using the summer. So this chrysalis, my intention is for this chrysalis of this particular spell to be active for the next 3 months. And obviously you can do this anytime you want. There's no time stamp. But if you want to do it with a lot of other people that are doing the spell. So the chrysalis is the July, August, September is when I'll be going through this spell with the people who take the course. In that time, while we're in the chrysalis, what we're going to be doing is reprogramming and lining up to our new role, specifically online, because this is for empath entrepreneurs who want to use the internet, as part of their medium. After you do the spell, shake out the old program, which is what the spell is, then you fold into your chrysalis. And so that chrysalis is that space you are intending to, you're giving yourself and you're intending in that space. The whole objective of this space is to dissolve and form into something entirely new. So when you're going into this spell, you're not coming out the same thing. And so this spell is for people who are ready to die. You're ready to die to your old programming and ready to become something entirely new. This is that process, and it's going through that sort of death process with others who are going through the death process or the metamorphosis process. When you come out of your chrysalis, it's important to close the circle that you created. So you're indicating to the universe, this spell is complete. This spell is over. This particular spell, it's the equivalent of fully stepping into it. And you really want to have a grounding. So when a caterpillar is breaking out of its chrysalis, it needs to have its foot grounded on the branch so it can come out. It needs to have good footing or it can fall and die. So the ending of the spell is just as important, to have your foot on solid ground. And that's one thing in the first round of the spell of Astronomical Abundance that I did, which was just an experiment. I wasn't really planning to do it like a spell, but one thing I realized is my footing coming out of the spell, I wasn't prepared for that. And so it's taken me a while to get my footing and wrap up that last spell. So in this one, for those of you not taking it with us, I just want to emphasize that it's important that you bring it to a conclusion, bring the spell to a conclusion and close the circle in your mind and then clean up the spell. So obviously when you create the spell and you're doing it in a physical way, you want to make sure you put that spell away. But the purpose of the spell of Astronomical Abundance, which is going to be the summer, I recommend making a symbol of whatever the spell is and keeping it out for the whole 3 months. So it's kind of like making an altar or a vision board, but something that's a visual that reminds you of, this is like my protected little energy container that has the spell, the magic of the spell is happening in it. The alchemy is happening in it. And so it's a way to keep connected to it. And then when the spell is over, you clean it up, you release it. So you undo the altar, you clear it, telling the matrix, and it's telling your mind, most importantly, that the spell is complete. And it gives you it gives your brains the permission to receive it. The brain wants to know, I did my steps. I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and so now it's complete. The brain needs that. And so that's just the physical part of this spell is just a representation for the mind to tell it what it needs. And then after you clear the spell, you act on inspiration. Because the spell is unfolding. It's going to be an unfolding thing. The spell is really going to be continually unfolding in your life over and over and over again in new ways, because you are literally stepping into a new life, into a new being entirely. And so it's important to take action on inspiration. Let your new body, your new way that you are in the world, give you a different pattern, a different algorithm of how you interact with the world, because you're going to be different. And that's how you know the spell worked, is if you are doing something different. If you're doing the same thing, you haven't shaken out the old program yet. To break it down really quickly again, I said all of this as usual in way longer than I wanted to, but it seems to help for those of you who are like me, so I'm just going to roll with it. So number 1, prepare the spell. Essentially, it's healing our relationship with technology and leveraging it, actually utilizing it for the win-win-win. So we're utilizing the internet in this case. So prepare the spell, prepare what you need, clear a space, clear the space for it, make sure the energy's set up right, ground deeply into your body, raise the magical energy by shaking out the old program, fold into your chrysalis, shake until you can fold and invert into your chrysalis. And then know that for whatever time you set, if you're doing it with us, it's for the next 3 months, that you have permission to fully dissolve within that. Fully dissolve. Permission to dissolve. And then we break out of the chrysalis, get our strong footing in the physical world, and we close the circle. We clean up the altar or wherever our spell has been, or whatever container we've kept the spell in for the last 3 months. We clear it. And then we set the intention to act on inspiration, what our inspiration is leading us to. My intention for this spell, especially for those of you taking it with me, is that it just gives you time to reset. You know what you want to do, but if you continue in the patterns that you've been doing it, you know it just keeps creating the same thing. So this is an opportunity to totally unplug from the old matrix, allow ourselves to dissolve and reprogram, and then step out back into the world lined up to the energy of abundance or heaven on earth. So if you want to join, the link is in the description box. You have a couple days. If you click on it and it's sold out, it's because I've sold all 22 spots. So at this point, I'm not 100% sure how many spots I have left, but I've kind of been keeping it on the DL, like I said. So because I just trust that the most magical people, you know if it's you, because you know it. You were called to this video. It showed up in your feed in a really random way, or someone sent it to you in a random way. This is always how it happens with me. People just know they're called to it, and I don't need to do any work. You're the one who knows. So you just know you're called to it. If you know it, you'll sign up. So I trust that process, and I can't wait to see who joins me. So yeah, let's do this. I'm excited. This was a very, very long video, and if you've made it all the way to the end, like, kudos to you. You're probably super freaking magical, and I would love to hear your comments in the description box below. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification button if you want to be notified when I post. All right, much love, guys.